Incarceration, torment and vicious entities await the Most Haunted team as we travel to Scotland.
Somebody just went up these stairs.
Hello, I'm Yvette Fielding and this week I brought my team to a place where death and punishment were a regular occurrence. Welcome to Most Haunted and Tolbooth Museum.
Built between 1616 and 1629, Tolbooth is one of the oldest buildings in Aberdeen and one of the best preserved 17th century Scottish jails. Formerly the ward house, the building was used to hold prisoners awaiting trial in the adjacent courthouse and to house them once a guilty verdict was returned. Paranormal phenomena is said to be rife in the prison, with reports of hot and cold spots, feelings of despair, strange ghostly sounds, and the sensation of being watched.
These corridors would have once rang with the sounds of keys in locks, cries of mercy, and convicts praying for forgiveness. Those days are long gone, but something sinister has replaced them. The ghost of a man has been witnessed here many times wearing 1920s clothing with a trilby hat and has caused many to flee. It is said he appears only 4 feet tall as the floors have been raised several feet since the 1920s. Others have seen strange lights and heard mumbling sounds as though someone or something is trying to communicate. One of the most famous ghost stories at Tolbooth Museum is that of the Fitty Witch. Unfortunately, it's just that, a story made up during a reenactment. The story stayed and has been catching out paranormal groups and mediums ever since. However, fortunately for us, many witches were kept, tried and executed here. The preferred method of their public death was strangulation, followed by burning. So are these unfortunate women responsible for the slamming doors, dark shadows and piercing shrieks heard in the dead of night? We have one night to find out.
What can Most Haunted's resident historian Leslie Smith tell us about the Tolbooth's prison's dark past?
Aberdeen has always been one of Scotland's most important cities. The Tolbooth building is one of the oldest buildings here, and also it is one of the best preserved buildings of its type. It has an exciting past. It is in fact a prison, and next door to us is still the Sheriff's Court. The prison held the type of people you would expect: the thieves, the vagabonds, but also the witches. Quite a number of those are linked with this particular place. And after the Jacobite rebellion, lots were held.
Now, a number of witches were imprisoned in the Tolbooth whilst they were interrogated. The Tolbooth, this version of it was built between 1616 and 1629, so after that, witches who were arrested were held here. And there were some phases of witchcraft persecution in the mid-17th century in Aberdeen in the 1630s and 40s. The main phase of persecution of so-called witches in Aberdeen had happened in the 1590s and 1597 in particular. Those witches had been imprisoned in the steeple of St Nicholas Church, the main church in Aberdeen, but the Tolbooth, which preceded the one in this site, would probably have been the location where they were tortured prior to trial, which would have happened in the courts immediately next door to the Tolbooth.
We know that the people who were here in this building were very fearful and often held in the most appalling, cramped, stinking conditions with absolutely no hope, and some of them absolutely because they were just poor. Some of the ghost stories that we have here are people crying out in the night and figures seen tight on the spiral stone stairs. There is also the smell of a rotting corpse, some say, in one of the rooms. And certainly figures are seen moving from one building to another.
Obviously everyone comes into the Tolbooth and they leave with their own particular reaction. Oddly enough, one of the most common stories is people dressed in 1920s and 1930s clothes. There's also been reports of children, ghosts of children in here, which is fair enough because the Tolbooth was associated with a period of kidnapping of children in the 18th century when the magistrates and merchants in Aberdeen went through a bad phase of kidnapping children in the city and selling them off as slaves in America.
With Tolbooth Prison Museum's murderous past all too prominent in our minds, what will Dr. Kieran O'Keefe make on its alleged spirit activity?
Now, in my experience, when we've investigated jails or prisons, we've got an awful lot of activity, and I'm so excited because I think we're going to get some good stuff tonight.
Well, yeah, I hope we do. And like you say, the activity we generally get is not your standard a sound or people feeling a bit odd. There's also a lot of physical phenomena, and I don't think there's been any prison we haven't been in where we've had stones being thrown.
I know, there's an awful lot of them. You know, even sort of when we've been around with the cameras in the daytime, we've heard knocks, bumps, the odd little stone being thrown, so I'm really looking forward to it tonight. The only thing that does concern me is the fact that we're right in the centre of a city, and I'm just worried about night time, you know, night noises, police cars and so on. You know, does that bother you at all?
No. Not in the slightest. When I turned up, I was initially very concerned for exactly those reasons. But you look at the thickness of the walls, and certainly when you speak to, you know, the curator of the museum, you realise the thickness of the walls prevented screams and sounds from within the museum or within the prison from going out onto the street, and vice versa. So I think as the evening goes on, it doesn't matter how loud the traffic is or passers-by,